Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of People Also Ask and We Answer. We all know that data and AI are going to rapidly transform the global economy in the next decade and beyond. But is it all about economic benefit, or can they do also good for society? Let's find out by answering some of the most researched questions on this topic on Google. We're going to explore these themes with our two guests for today. Shalini Kurapati, CEO and co-founder at Clearbox AI. Hello, Shalini, how are you?
Hi, Alessandra. So great to be here. Hello, Giovanna.
And Giovanna Jaramillo Gutierrez, consultant senior epidemiologist at the World Health Organization and data scientist at Milan and Associates. Hello, Giovanna, welcome.
Hi.
We are very happy to have you here today.
Happy to be here. Thank you, Alessandra. Hi, Shalini.
Okay, Giovanna, maybe you would like to start to introduce yourself a bit, tell us about your work and what you do.
So my background, I did a master's in epidemiology and a PhD in molecular biology. And I've been working as a consultant for the World Health Organization in the emergency program, basically on outbreak response. And most recently in the last almost a year and a half on COVID. When I'm not deployed on a mission on field response, I also work as a data scientist, in multidisciplinary teams to help companies or institutions audit their machine learning-based algorithms in high-stake decisions, mostly in the health sector.
I'm going to start with the first question, which is the core question of this topic for me, and it's how can AI be used for good?
AI can be used for good for a multitude of reasons, starting from what Joanna said. In healthcare, it has immense potential in making patient outcomes better in terms of predicting diseases and outbreaks and in drug discovery. So healthcare is really a fertile ground for good. In addition, we also have some lesser known aspects like agriculture, where you can use AI to target the right amount of pesticide to the right crop so that you reduce the environmental impact of chemicals, for instance. And then more and more for climate change, in terms of predicting bad weather and floods and emergency response. The amazing part of AI is that irrespective of the application, we have to think about its power. So it's able to collect a large amount of information and give us insights so that we can make better decisions. And we can really use AI for good in pretty much every application.
There's a huge opportunity here, especially in the midst of the pandemic, because we realized that actually there's a huge amount of data being generated. And so techniques like natural language processing can be used, for example, for medical records to classify, like supervised learning to predict disease outcome based on health information data sets. And this at the moment is still a big challenge in the health sector because of the a bit outdated infrastructure, like traditional infrastructure.
In relation what I'm going to ask to you next, we know that AI has a great potential in the future, in the present, but also in the future, especially in the health sector. But we also know that it brings with it a huge ethical discussion, especially when it comes to bias, for example. So I'm going to ask you, what are the different type of bias to make, to clarify that a bit?
So when we talk about bias in AI, we talk about either statistical biases, or we also talk, let's say, on a more common, let's use more common vocabulary here. You have racial and gender bias. So basically that comes from the fact that the data sets that we have when we train AI models are not balanced enough. They are only collected from one certain part of the population. That's also called sampling bias or representation bias. And the other aspect is historical bias. So if we train our models with older data, that means that all the societal inequalities or biases are also represented in your model. The list of AI biases can be even more than the amount of cognitive biases or biases in general. There are hundreds of them. So the main ones we deal with as of now in the AI is especially the racial inequality, gender biases, representation bias, historical bias, and sometimes even confirmation bias. That means that if the result of AI doesn't agree with, is not the same as my beliefs, I might not. So we can go on, we could have like a series of discussions on the type of biases, but these are kind of the main ones we see in AI.
Yeah, sure. So it basically happens because of a lack of data or not enough data to work on, right?
Mostly also the quality of data, especially because it's like Joanna was saying, having good quality data sets is very difficult because the way they are collected, the way they are analyzed, the way they are shared, it's very different for different organizations. And you can't really assure that everything you collect has the perfect representation, the perfect sampling, and the perfect. And it's impossible, or I wouldn't say impossible, but it's extremely complicated to get a good data set that is balanced, that represents everybody, and it's equitable. So yeah, it's very hard.
For example, a machine learning based tool is developed for a specific health problem, let's say a diagnostic, right? And the technologist will take as an example off-the-shelf data set that they find I don't know, on Kaggle or online, and they will train the model, make a prototype, and then test it, maybe deploy. But often this type of, I call them off-the-shelf data sets that maybe you can buy also from data brokers, they don't have metadata. What do I mean by the metadata is really like the information that where is this data coming from? Is that what geographical region is? What's the ratio of men, women, the age, ethnicities, time of collection, because it's very important for the disease history. It's very important for the patient. Like when was, for example, if it's a laboratory sample that is taken, when was this sample taken? If you use this machine learning-based system in another population that was not reflected initially in the, for example, in the training data set, this may lead to harmful impact in, for example, the demographic groups that, as Shalini said, are not represented initially in the data set. And this may be because this data set was taken from one country where people from that, for example, ethnicity are not represented. It's crucial to have this discussion about like the data quality is really important, and what data you use for training is very important.
Yeah,
exactly. Joanna, I just wanted to add another example I read recently, especially we even talk about this as maybe it's a low-income country issue that we don't see it, but even in the US, the healthcare data that is being used to train AI models are only collected from only 3 states. So it's not representative at all for the rest of the country. So it's even in one country, they are only using it from 3 big states. So it's
exactly that's exactly what I'm referring to. Absolutely.
You know, I also think it's great to have concrete examples also for our viewers to know exactly what we are talking about. Also because we know the issue, and we also like to know how to prevent it. So what I'm going to ask you is how can we integrate diversity in AI?
First of all, it really, even research has shown that diverse teams of people that design these systems are really crucial here, that they can have different perspectives of the same problem definition that you want to solve, right? Unfortunately, even though research shows that it's better to have diverse teams, in reality, the people that develop this are very narrow in geography, right? It's mainly in the Western world, like US, Europe. And this means that maybe that tool will be used by people in other societies, but they're not represented. So you would need to first, in the design stage, really have different points of view. And also, to give you a concrete example, let's say you want to have a screening tool for breast cancer, then it would be good to co-design the tool with the Public Health Institute, the people, the patients, like to have a discussion with the patients, like really involve everybody across the stakeholders, because this builds trust in the tool. If you're transparent and you document how it was done, what data you used, how it was collected, etc. So this is something that would be very important to have, not only one type of people that are in the decision making, but if you want this to solve a problem, you need to talk to the problem owners.
Absolutely. Diverse teams are, I think, are really an ideal solution as well to include diversity. But I would also like to focus on the data aspect, like you mentioned. Like, first of all, we don't have representative data. And a non-medical example, I can give an example of Wikipedia, for instance. Wikipedia is used as a data set for many NLP models, also to train many types of NLP models. And the average user of Wikipedia, or the one who contributes to Wikipedia, is Western, college-educated, male, and white. So if you're going to train your models only on the information provided by this persona, how are you going to, represent the whole world? So again, it's so diversity, I think, also comes from the importance of being aware of diversity in your data sets, like how balanced they are, and and biases in your models, and also the people who are building it. I think they are all important.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Shalin. That is really a big issue, actually, because like even historically in clinical trials, the participants were all male, adult, Westerners, and so like there was a slow awareness that we actually need more representation in clinical trials, because that data is what determines whether a treatment is effective or not. And this has led to problems in previous, for example, again, an AI system, like a pacemaker for pregnant women, but pregnant women were not in the initial trial. So then it led to problems for the pregnant women, because they have more tachycardia, and the device could not interpret properly why this was happening. They thought it was a problem, and
exactly. It's so many more examples also in healthcare. Even like the symptoms of heart attack are different for men and women.
Yes, different, yeah.
And many AI models, they don't detect enough heart attack symptoms in women. There was even a few examples.
Yes, so this is why it's important to really document caveats and how the models were built. It's really crucial.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And I also think what you said about the communication between the different parts involved, no? We talked about in our previous interview about that, how important it is to give everyone a way to understand. So we've talked about bias, how can AI do good for society? And but we know that it all comes from data, basically, like we were saying also before. So what can we do to ensure good quality data? That's the last question for this interview today.
So first, thank you for asking that question, because it's really, really, really a neglected question in my view. I think it's not very... Most probably people don't think it's very sexy to talk about data quality and data collection. I'm obsessed by data collection. I'm a field epidemiologist. That's the core of my business, what I do. If you have bad quality data, is, we say garbage in, garbage out. The quality of your model is not going to be good. I don't care what's your performance accuracy. I want to see what you use for training data. So I'm going to talk about the health sector mainly. I must say, with the pandemic now, there's more awareness that we need like good quality data in real time. We still have a big hill to go up in the sector, but it's getting there. There's more awareness, and I think with the advent of the pandemic and digital health, apps and wearables, very soon I think we will have more in real-time data. But I would say specifically for the developing like models, there are two aspects. Either you're as a technologist, you want to develop a machine learning based model for health, and you want to work with a partner, like a health partner, whether it's a clinic, public health institute, and then they are immediately involved in the co-design of the data collection, and you have domain experts that will tell you, yes, this data set can be used for training, it's valid, it's accurate, it's consistent, it's good completeness, because this is crucial, it has the right variables, the right timelines for the data points, etc. That's like the best case scenario. What I've seen through my work, it's more, I found this data set online and I'm going to use to train my model. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what's the metadata. I don't know what's the data points. This is a very big problem because then we have to do data integration and basically a good interoperability in the health sector is not by default at all. So the data integration is a big issue in the health sector, and this is something to have in mind. If you don't have the right data with the right variables that make sense for the problem at hand, so problem definition should be very clear, and based on that problem definition, what variables you need so that you can then evaluate the model.
Oh yeah, I fully agree with Joanna. Data quality is really a neglected issue, also because it's the less sexy part of doing machine learning. Because if you build your models and you can tweak with the parameters and get better performance, you get very excited. But always the data quality aspect is seen as like a thankless and a manual dirty job. Even you talk about metadata, Joanna, even adding the metadata is a kind of a thankless process for some people. It's like quite manual, but it's extremely important for the quality of the data set. And we also know that in the whole AI cycle, 80% of the time is spent on data processing and making it better, only 20% on the models. However, if you look at the type of innovations that happen, 99% of the innovations happen on the machine learning model side and very little in the data quality side. Another aspect also I would like to mention, in addition to data quality, there are a lot of concerns regarding privacy, for instance. So if you, when you collect the data, if I have to build machine learning models, how can we use this in a way that protects the rights of the individuals as well? So when you're building AI models, it's also very hard to assure them that the risk of re-identification is low. Actually, right now, even at ClearBox, we are also thinking more on a data-centric perspective. And for instance, now we're using techniques like synthetic data to start building models, and where we can also not only assess the data more efficiently, but also augment it and try to see if there are imbalances. Can we have a synthetic data that can, be more representative than the original one? Can we reduce biases in a synthetic data? So right now we are also having use cases for privacy preservation, but that's it's one of the ways to block the issues that we see nowadays.
We all know that good quality data is the basis of a good AI project, for a good AI project evolution. So thank you very much for being with us today. I would like to remind you to follow us on our social media profiles on Twitter or LinkedIn. You can find us as ClearBox AI to stay updated with the new episodes of People Also Ask and We Answer, and with much more content too. And so I hope to see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. It was a great talk. Thank you very much.